Today, I have a really awesome guest today, someone who I've just been just amazed with. I first heard about our guest when I was in the Bulldog Mindset membership forum in the Facebook group, and someone had told me, there's this dude, you got to watch this documentary. He's run 50, or he's done 50 Ironman in 50 days. I watched the documentary and I was like, oh shit, I gotta get this guy on here to talk to you guys, because we've been talking about pushing ourselves to the limit. I do a lot of extreme stuff, but nothing compares, I think, that I've ever seen. Even David Goggins level, I think this is beyond that. To be honest with you, is James Lawrence, who is known as the Iron Cowboy. So welcome, James.
Hey man, thank you so much, John. That was super kind. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, it's really like, I think it's hard for people to believe what you've done. Even watching it, I think it's people. It's just so mind blowing.
But it's funny you say that, because I get the reaction a lot, and then with a lot, I've been kind of thrusted into the speaking world.
Yeah.
I do 80 plus events a year, and it's crazy to me when an event will book me. Mm. And then they will come back to me and they'll say, hey, I think there's a misprint. It says consecutive days.
Yeah.
You have to mean in a year. And I just chuckle and I'm like, no, it was consecutive.
And it's kind of interesting. I wonder if you run into this, because, I mean, like I guess I know. I guess most people probably don't even have a clue of what it is that you've done, because, I run marathons. And I'm a pretty big guy to run marathons, so I kind of know the difficulty of that. But I talk to people, and I'm like, oh yeah, I ran a marathon, and they're like, oh, how many miles is that? And I'm like, 26.2. Oh, so what's that, like an hour or two? I'm like, no, it's like 4 hours of running. They're like, oh wow, and it's like, so I try to explain a marathon to people, and that's like, they can't even fathom it, because most people have run maybe like a few miles in their life, but like to understand an Ironman and then to do it again and again and again, to me that's like, I mean, all the time now when I'm on like a 20-mile run, I'm thinking about you. I'm like, I'm wanting to give up, and I'm like, if I were James right now, I would still have to finish this, and I would have biked already today, and I would have already swam, and I'd be doing this shit again tomorrow. So
maybe
yeah.
we should break down what an Ironman triathlon is for you.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So triathlon is kind of anything swim, bike, and run. Mm-hmm. And then Ironman is a brand, and they've done a great job of branding kind of the full distance triathlon. And so an Ironman distance triathlon is going to be a 2.4 mile swim,
okay,
a 112 mile bike ride, and then you wrap up the day with a full marathon, which is the 26.2 miles that you just talked about. So the total is 140.6 miles.
Yeah. And anyone who's run a marathon, I mean, that alone is hard. So like to add the other stuff. So I want to ask you, that's one thing I've always been curious about, because I only do the marathon part. How does the marathon compare to the swimming? Like, is it twice as hard? Is it about the same equivalent, swimming? I have no idea what it's like to swim that distance.
Yeah, once you're proficient at the distance, it's, we talked about it this morning when we were in the pool. It's just a formality of the race. Once you get through the swim portion, it's kind of when the race begins. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's the number one reason why people don't do an Ironman, is because that swim is overwhelming. I mean, you take open water, cold water, 3,800 meters. I mean, it's just, it's overwhelming. And then you put 2,000 people in the water and fire the gun off. You're going to get kicked in the face. You're going to get punched. You're going to get pulled down in the water. And you have to have that ability amidst all of that chaos to calm yourself down and kind of try to own your space in the water. And so I get it. It's overwhelming. It's challenging. And it's the number one reason why people around the world would say, oh, I would do that, but I don't, the swim really scares me. And so, I mean, you guys talk a lot about mindset, and that's what we're all about as well. And, it really comes down to being consistent in your training and getting in the water and getting comfortable with that. And to do that, that means you have to be solid here and start to break down that fear and those emotions so that you can navigate the water, so that on race day you can show up and be like, okay, I've done the work and now this is just a formality. Let's get to the 112 bike and then the marathon. And so, it is the most daunting part, but once you're there and prepared, it is a formality. And you can't, it's impossible to compare the swim against the bike and the run. And that's, oddly enough, that's why the iron distance started, is because it was 3 guys in Hawaii that was like, hey, I'm the best athlete. And they had a race where they swam around the island, and there was a cyclist that biked around the island. He's like, well, I'm the best athlete. And then there was a guy that ran marathons, and he's like, well, what's up, boys? I'm the best athlete. And they were like, well, let's combine all 3 and see how we do. And that's kind of how Ironman, the first one, was thrown together. And these guys just were like, hey, let's figure this out, and let's see who's the best athlete. And then the distance was kind of born. And so, and then also, the marathon part has got to be the hardest for most everybody once you've prepared, because you've already done the swimming, you've already done the biking, and now we're asking you to run a full marathon. And I heard a stat a couple of years ago that less than 1% of the population runs a marathon.
Yeah, exactly.
So that number has to be much lower when it comes to doing an Ironman. And that just goes to show how hard just a marathon is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So what I gather from that is you'd say that the mental aspect of the swimming is harder. The physical aspect of the running is harder. Am I correct in saying that? Or is the physical aspect, I was trying to figure out like the equivalent. Is it kind of equivalent?
I'd say you can't compare the two, because the mental part of the running is, let's say it takes you 14 hours to do this Ironman.
Yeah.
And your marathon's going to take you 5 hours. Well, you're 9 hours in to this thing where you're challenging yourself mentally. And so mentally, to get to the swim start and to overcome those fears, that's a challenge. But now, as you know, our willpower goes down the deeper into something we get and the harder something gets. And so now we're asking a big ask out of someone that says, okay, we're 9 hours into this. Now I want you to go run a marathon. So not only do you have to be physically ready to do that, mentally, you've been being broken down and having those conversations throughout the entire journey. You have to be mentally sharp. So it's really, it's not apples to apples. They're different categories, and it's really hard to compare the two because it's one race. And as you progress through it, you have to apply mental toughness and physical ability and all of the things that even just get you to the start line, right? Grit, consistency, planning, sacrifice, all these buzzwords that everybody talks about. It's real when you're getting ready for an Ironman. You have to apply all of those things in order to do that. Or it's funny. I always say, because someone's like, they'll reach out to me because they have a big goal or a challenge coming up, and then I'll say, okay, when do you want to accomplish this goal? And they're always like, well, in 3 months. And I'm like, whoa, dude, like that's not realistic. And I always follow that up with, we can probably get you to the start line in 3 months, but your ability to be successful is in direct relation to your amount of sacrifice and preparation that you've put in. And so, we can get you there, but that doesn't mean we're going to see success. And for me, when I do these big challenges, I understand the enormity of what I'm putting on the table. For me personally, right? If it was the half Ironman world record at the time, that was like stretching for me. Then the world record for the full Ironmans, that was stretching. Then the 50, obviously a huge stretch. But every time I came off the world record for doing 30 Ironmans in a year in 11 countries. And I said, okay, this is the next goal. I really want to find out what I can do. I took 2.5 years to get ready for that next thing. And arguably I was in unbelievable shape coming off that world record. Mentally, I was super sharp. I gained a ton of experience. But still, I said, 2.5 years, and I'm still a little bit scared of that goal, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That I think that's great advice. I mean, so many people just want to just jump right in, and they feel like they can just transform overnight, but it takes the time. It takes the preparation. It's like you said, it's all the work that you put in before you get to the start line.
People see the headline, the 50, right? But they don't realize the decade of foundational work that went in before that. I mean, you look at any celebrity, any big music star, any whatever, and you know of them because they hit it big. And once you
Yep.
start to really dig into that person's history, you'll see a commercial from 10 years ago where they were struggling to do whatever. And then all of this timeline will start lining up and you'd be like, holy hell, dude was like grinding for a
Yeah.
hell of a long time before I even knew he existed. And I mean, there's overnight successes, but it's based off of the foundational work that they did. And so,
Yep.
and most people don't realize that. They see the headline, they see the famous person, they see the accolades, the records or whatever, and they're like, oh, yeah, I want to throw my head in that ring. I think I can do that in 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think it's even interesting, just in your story, right? I mean, as I was watching the documentary and I remember seeing how you're trying to raise funds and like no one was really paying attention to you. And here you are, like the Guinness World Record holder who had run 30 or had done 30 Ironmans, complete 30 Ironmans in 1 year. And you couldn't get but now it's coming. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it took some time. Even that took you some time before, but now, like you said, you're on stage, you're speaking all the time. People know who you are. But at that point, if I were you, I'd done 30 Ironmans in a year, I'd be like, why isn't everyone trying to give me money or trying to sponsor me or trying to, you know what I mean? You must have been frustrating for you to have done such an accomplishment that people can't even fathom how great of an accomplishment it is. And you're not getting any of the, of what you expect at that point, because it's a long time, right?
It's so interesting you brought that up because coming off the 30, I was like, okay, the 50 is going to happen and I'm going to contact all the big companies and the dudes with the money and we're going to sign these contracts and do these deals. And I put together my PDF and my video and all this to do the marketing. And man, I was shocked. The problem is it's like a catch-22, like I can't win because every time I do something, it's something that nobody else has done.
Right.
And so they come back to me and they say, yeah, you're unbelievable. And we wish we would have been involved with you earlier, but we can't afford to associate ourselves with a failure because what you're doing is impossible. And I'm like, well, I don't know how you want me to win because every time I do one of these, you tell me it's impossible and you're scared because you think I'm going to fail. And I keep doing what I say I'm going to do. And so it's just frustrating. And I've got to the point now where I'm just like, forget it. This is my passion. This is what I do. You want to support me? Let's go. If not, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Early on, I was like, man, I can't do this without the support. And I had companies that come on and, I had a lot really great partnerships that I still have today with like product and support and social media and all those things that was valuable for me then. And I'm so grateful and I'm still loyal to those companies.
Yeah.
But I have created my own future, and I don't have to put my hand out and say I can't do this without that financial support. And I was like, look, if this is going to happen, it's going to be on me. And so I said, I'm an entrepreneur. How do I spin this? How do I now make an income? And to be honest, I've been an entrepreneur since the beginning. And the reason we started down this road of doing world records and these challenges and to push ourselves physically and mentally was to build our coaching platform. I've been coaching for a decade. And I was like, okay, I got to do something creative, something cool in order to, be a notch above the next guy. And before I knew it, this escalated quick and we did the 50 and then it just spun into this entire different world of speaking. And we've done no marketing and advertising for our speaking. And like I said, we've done 80 plus events a year. And over the past 3 years have been invited to 48 countries. And so we've just been so utterly blessed to where it's like, okay, the sponsorships are great, but I don't care about your opinion, whether you think I'm going to fail or not, because I've created my own future to where now I can go and do these challenges and fund it myself.
Yeah, no, yeah,
which is a really cool space to be in.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the place to be. I think part of the challenge too is just that, like we were saying at the beginning, is like people don't even understand what it is. Like it's so hard. I mean, I feel like someone has to have run a marathon in order to understand what an Ironman and what to do it, or to have done an Ironman to understand what it is to do. So it's almost like you can't even describe it because people just don't have something to relate it to. And but it's awesome now that you've gotten it. I think part of it too is like with the documentary, now there's the story. And the story is powerful because it was like, now people are hearing, you don't have to do the marketing and advertising because it's word of mouth. Because, you know, I watched that and I'm like, fuck, everyone needs to watch this. Like, this guy's, and, you know, I posted up in my channel, I'm like, you guys need to watch this, because this is, you know, you thought that the limit was here. You were up here and you're like, oh, I'm a badass or whatever, but it's not. It's way up here. Like, you're so small in what you could achieve. And yeah, I think that's the beauty of what you've done, is it's like, it sets the bar so high. I'm like, you know, I thought I was doing some crazy stuff running a marathon at 240 pounds, but that's nothing compared to what you've accomplished, which to me, that's a great service to me. Because if I think that, oh, it can't get much harder than this, and I realize it can get 100 times harder than this, then that inspires me to push myself harder. And I think that's the message. That's why it's resonating, is it's because people are sharing it now.
Yeah, I think what's been interesting on my journey since the 50 is, one, my story, our book, our documentary, and everything. It's not about triathlon. It's about overcoming, pushing boundaries. And with all of my experience through the 48 countries, I've realized that, look, I'm talking to humans. Like, I don't care if we're in Sri Lanka or Israel or the United States or Poland or whatever. We're all human beings and we're all struggling. And the one thing that I've realized is that as humans and adults, we get in our own way. We get in our headspace, and we'll always be our own toughest critics. And it's about winning those conversations, those mental battles that we have with ourselves. And ultimately, the question I pose right now is, as adults, when did we stop dreaming? And when did we start comparing ourselves against a standard of excellence that is mediocre?
Yes.
So you look around and you go, okay, salary caps, that's meant for like basketball and football, and I can only make X, and your team can only spend so much dollars. And at some point in time, the humans went, you know what, we have caps on our abilities mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And I went, you know what, I'm gonna stop looking around at what everybody else is doing, and I'm gonna create and carve out my own lane to what I think is possible for this guy.
Right.
And I'm going to use you as motivation to get me going, to kickstart me and put me on my journey. But I'm not going to look at what you achieved as far as like, man, I got to get to that level, because maybe I'm limiting myself and holding myself back. So I'm going to use dudes like you and all the other IG superstars and all that out there, and the YouTube heroes and whatnot. I'm going to, okay, these guys, I'm leaning on these guys to get me going, to kickstart me, to drive my passion, to get me excited for the day, to do my training. But my big goal, I want to do something that nobody else has done. I believe that that's our human potential. And so everybody's looking around and go, what's he doing? What's he doing? What's he doing? How can I match that? What's this? Ooh, I think that's pop. No, dude, use that to just kickstart you. And then you've got to set your own limits and expectations. And with all of that said, you got to show up every day, do the work, believe in yourself, put the right team around you, sacrifice, and holy hell, you've got to give your giant goals the respect time-wise that they deserve in order to be successful. That right there is the recipe to how you achieve success. Stop comparing yourself against the current bullshit mediocrity that's out there, and create your own lane. Do you, and just do it. Do it because you have a passion for it, not because you're like, man, I got to get this like and that like, and I got to create a brand and I want to inspire people. Dude, stop all that. Do it because you want to do it. I hate people that are like, okay, I hate my job, it sucks, and I want to go inspire people. No, dude, that's the worst attitude. That's the worst way to start a journey. You'll never inspire anybody, because now you're coming off as not being authentic, and you've got an agenda. You've got an agenda, and dude, people can see right through it. Dude, I don't care how many bullshit likes I have on my Instagram, how many followers I have. I do this because I love it. And because of that, people are changing the way they think just because I'm just out there doing it. And I'm not trying to impress anybody. And I think one of the best skills that I have is I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what you think. I don't care what dude next door thinks. I'm out there doing me because I love it. It's my passion. I'm trying to raise my kids right and do all of those things. So people can criticize and comment and do whatever. Dude, it's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's totally solid advice. You have to do it for you 100%. That's the only thing that's going to sustain you in the long run. That's it. It's got to be. And you can be successful by outward means, and people can say, "Oh, you're so great," but if you didn't push it to the limit, if you didn't achieve what you could have achieved, even though other people may think that, oh, you should be happy.
Yeah, dude, I can't stand this more than anything else is the amount of guys out there that are just trying to be Me Too's like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just out there re-quoting everybody. My biggest pet peeve with the speaking industry and the endurance world and all that is they preach something, they quote stuff online, and then in their real lives and in the racing and everything, they're not doing any of that. They're just like a bunch of quitters that don't know how to stick something through and finish it and adapt and evolve and all these things. And they're really mental midgets. And I mean, I've got a couple guys in my life right now that are just over the top pathetic, and they're just so intoxicating. And it's just frustrating because we work in that same space, and I mean, guys, social media is a bunch of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
and
100%.
The amount of bullshit that's out there is unbelievable. And so just be careful who you look up to and who you look to inspire you, and who you follow the people that have done shit.
Exactly.
Follow the people that have been in the arena and are proven and that know how to do and execute and actually do what they say they're going to do, and they live and do what they preach. And that's just such a rare thing. And so it's just frustrating because there's just so many phonies out there.
Oh yeah. 100%. I agree with you 100%. That's actually why I like YouTube so much, is at least, I've been doing like a video a day. I started to reduce the frequency. At one point I was doing 2 videos a day, and I was like, guys, like I can't bullshit you because you see me every single day. Like I can't, you know what I mean? But it makes me accountable to myself, because I'm like, hey, you can be a fat ass if you want, but you got to get on video the next day and you got to explain what's going on, because people are going to call you out. They're going to say, hey dude, what's going on? What happened? Did you stop running? And so you're absolutely right though. There's so many people that just throw up quotes, and they're like, throw out the things that other people have done and said, and they're not practicing it. And they're leading all these people because they're quote influencers, but they haven't actually done anything themselves.
Guys like David Goggins is amazing. Guys like Jocko Willnick, guys like Dom Rosso. I mean, these guys are showing up every single day. Absolutely. They prove it. They post about it. They do it. They're living it. They're inspiring people. I mean, that's Tom Bilyeu, Rich Roll. I mean, all these guys. Those are guys that you want to emulate and be like. And they're guys that are showing up every single day, sacrificing, grinding, and they live what they teach. And it's just. That was a fun rant for me to have, because it frustrates me to no end that there's guys out there that they're just Me Too's, man. And it's just, I'll stop, but it's frustrating.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I like what you said also about the time, because you've said this multiple times. One of the rules that I have, and I tell people on this channel, is 5 years. If you want to do anything great in your life, the minimum that you should be able to be willing to commit is 5 years. Because if you want to be able to become a great runner, you want to build a business, whatever it is, if you can't put 5 years into it, if you're so short term, then don't even start, because that's what it takes to do something great usually.
To that very point, people I mean, obviously we coach triathletes around the world, and we specialize in the iron distance. We do it all, but we specialize in that distance. And people, the Super Bowl, the pinnacle of our sport is Kona, the Ironman World Championships. And you have to qualify for this. And it has gotten so very hard, and everybody wants to go to Kona. And I tell people all the time, look, once we get you to in the, mid to low 10-hour range for males, right? Mid to low 10-hour range. I need 3 more years. You need 3 more years. 3 to 5 more years after you're an elite.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to start knocking on the door of Kona. And I'll tell that to people, and they're like, nah, that can't be possible. And I'm like, I'm close. And I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for over 12 years. And trust me, once we get you here, unless you're going to go do drugs, right?
Right.
Unless you're going to go do drugs, great. Go do that. I don't want any part of you. But if you're going to do this legit and you're going to show up, I understand how the body evolves. I know what it takes. You can spot a guy that's doing whatever the dirty stuff so easy, because he went from X to Y or Y to Z or whatever in 6 months. And you're like, dude, Stop it. I've been in this game a long time. The body does not change and evolve like that. Even for genetic freaks, it doesn't evolve like that. Even the most talented of talented, it takes a long time to develop the experience and the skill set and the stabilizer muscles and the ligaments and the tendons. And they just don't they don't grow as quickly and as strong as muscles do. And you have to have all of those things in place. And so when someone comes to me and they're like, hey, I want to do Kona next year. And I'm like, okay, what's your experience? Like, this is my first Ironman, but I've done some, I'm just like, okay, let's pump the brakes for 2 seconds here. And I'm the kind of guy that I'm not going to coddle any of my athletes either. I will say, look, that is a amazing goal for 5 years from now. Let's work on these smaller ones to get you to that point. Let's shelf that for a second. Great goal, but let's shelf it and let's talk about what some realistic timeframes are, because it does. Once you're elite, you need 3 to 5 years before it's like, okay, I'm really serious about going to the World Championships.
Yeah.
That's gonna be, any triathletes that are listening to this, that's gonna be a hard pill to swallow. And it's just reality. I've been in this game a long time, and I'm just speaking from sheer experience, having been to Kona and having coached athletes to Kona. I know the game. I know how it goes.
Yeah. It's about sticking out, right? It's about showing up every day, like you said, and being willing to put in the time and to willing to be consistent. And
the best example I've ever seen is this. I grew up as a wrestler, and it was my passion. I loved it, and I still love it today. And it breaks my heart that my son won't do it. but there was this kid when I graduated from high school. I was in club wrestling. We were getting ready for the national championships, and there was this young kid on our team, and he was terrible. He just got mopped, and he just kept showing up. Well, I got injured. I left the game. I moved to the States because I grew up in Canada. And about 5 years later, I went back to visit, and this kid was a damn stud. And this kid went on to win the national championships.
Oh, wow.
And I would have bet anything that kid, no way. But for 5 years, dude, he showed up and he outworked everybody.
Yeah.
Dude went on to win the national championships. And I was just like, that is just proof positive about a mindset of a guy that's just like, I'm not going to quit. I believe that this is possible. I'm talking no genetic talent, no athletic ability, but just continue to show up and rep after rep after rep. Dude went on to win. And it was a really cool thing. And for me to witness and see kind of, I know the kid, I know what you were, and then to come back 5 years later and go, holy cow, who are you and how did you do that?
Yeah. It's such an amazing thing, because I think a lot of people get focused on genetics and natural talents. And, I think of it as the old, like the game, D&D, rolling up the stats. And it's like, it doesn't matter what your stats are at level 1. like if someone's level 15, it doesn't actually matter. Like there's no competition. And it's like, so many people are focused on like what their strengths are or what their genetics are. And it's such a small portion compared to 10, 15 years of training. Like the training is what really makes the difference. But so many people are focused on that, the thing that is such a small, it gives you a head start at the beginning. Like if everyone's a beginner and someone's more naturally talented or has better genetics, they dominate. But if you train the same group of people for 5 years, or within the 5 year time period, it balances out. It doesn't matter as much. But
I agree with that 100%. One of my favorite quotes is from Conor McGregor. He says, "You're not looking at talent; you're looking at obsession."
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. Now, there's obviously going to be some scenarios where that's not true.
Right.
Like NFL players, like you have to be built a certain way, a certain size, certain speed. And then on top of that, have genetic ability and a level of athleticism. And then on top of that, you have to put in that amount of work, right?
Right.
Those are going to be scenarios where it matters. NBA, right? I'm 5'8". I'm 5'8".
Yeah.
There's no like one guy out of a billion did it, right? And so like the odds, it doesn't matter if I showed up every single day and did 10,000 hours in a day. It just doesn't matter, right? So there's certain things like that. But like golf, you can't tell me a guy that doesn't put in the time in golf can't reach a high level. Fighting MMA, you can't tell me a guy that doesn't show up every single day and hones that craft and learns those skills, repetition, can't get to a high level. Most people aren't willing to do that. Those aren't like, that's why there's weight classes. Golf has a level playing field. You're playing against the course. It doesn't matter. A lot of it's here, and then your ability to continue to show up every single day and do that repetition. I also love that the saying, a high tolerance for monotony is an underrated superpower. And that's what people aren't willing to do either. They're not willing to show up every single day and get bored out of their mind. Do you think I like going to the pool and swimming thousands of laps? And That is so mind-numbingly ridiculous. How about the treadmill sessions we do? How about through the winter when I've got to do a 6-hour ride on my indoor trainer?
Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
what? Nobody wants to do that. That's not
No.
fun for anybody. I don't care who you are or what type of like recluse. That's not fun.
Right.
But it's the people that aren't willing to do that. Leading up to the 50, I mean, we did 50%, if not more, of our training indoors.
Wow.
Indoors. We're talking
Wow.
10-hour sessions on treadmills and trainers and weight sessions, all indoors.
Wow.
In the cold. And so it's like that's the type of stuff that people aren't willing to do. That's the type of stuff that people don't see. One of my favorite all-time commercials is an Under Armour commercial with Michael Phelps, where he's like, it's kind of dark, and it shows all of those moments where he's like getting up at 4:30 in the morning and in the pool by himself and running with the chains, and it's pitch black outside and all these things, because it's what we do in the dark that allows us, we've all heard this, it's the prep in the dark that allows us to shine in the light. And that's what people don't do, is the prep in the dark. They're worried about, I better post on social media and make sure the lighting's right and this. Shut up.
Yep, 100%. I got to ask you about heart rate, because I've been curious about this since I'm a runner and I try to run with my heart rate. Now, I know during that challenge, what you did was you kept your heart rate, was it below around 120 or was it 130? I can't remember exactly what it was, but what do you normally like? What was the kind of idea behind that? And and how was it to maintain that? Like, was it hard? Did you have to slow down to walk at times? How did it feel? Like, just kind of trying to get an idea of what this must be like.
Yeah. So this is an interesting topic as well, because training with heart rate is kind of what the coaches that are copying all the other coaches are coaching with and whatnot. And I am not a huge heart rate guy.
Really? Okay.
On the bike, we train with power. So a measurable output in watts that's delivered to the rear wheel, and that's an unbiased feedback of what we're doing. And then in running, we train off of pace zones, not heart rate zones.
Okay.
And so let's see if everybody can follow this. So in a race, especially endurance racing, your limiter at the end of a marathon isn't going to be my heart rate's too high, I had to slow down. It's going to be my legs were so damn heavy, I can't go any faster, because my limiter is my muscular endurance, my legs,
right.
my ability to process lactate and keep going, not my heart rate. And so your heart rate becomes a byproduct of our training and our fitness to get ready for an event. Now, we monitored it just to make sure that nothing was going wrong and to make sure that we were fueling properly and everything. But I don't train with heart rate. I don't coach with heart rate. We do it all with pace on the run and power on the bike, because those are unbiased forms of feedback.
Sure, that makes sense.
And there's so many outliers that impact heart rate: caffeine, sleep, stress, time of day, temperature, humidity. Those things can make a heart rate be 10 beats different.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you're in the wrong zone and you're training improperly. And there's such thing as cardiac drift. So 2 hours into your training session, your heart rate's going to naturally go up. Well, if I'm trying to keep that heart rate down when I'm experiencing what's supposed to be happening, cardiac drift, well, I'm now slowing down when I could be going faster because I'm trying to stay below a specific number.
Right. That makes sense. Okay.
With our coaching, we can predict how many watts you should be pushing on the bike to be able to come off and run well at a certain pace. And I can look at an athlete's data and say, yeah, you pushed. The classic thing that people say is, man, I had a really great bike in this Ironman, but I ran poorly. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll flip that conversation and scenario and say, no, you biked poorly because it didn't allow you to run well, because you were outside of what you should have been pushing on that. You weren't prepared with your muscular endurance to do that. And then it goes full circle to, should we strength train or not for endurance racing? And the answer is absolutely yes, because this is a strength sport over endurance, right? It's muscular endurance. That's going to be your ultimate limiter, not your heart rate. Your heart rate's a byproduct of what's happening. Once you get to a certain fitness level, your heart rate is what it is. And there's going to be outliers where it's higher and lower and whatnot. And there's too many outside factors that affect the heart rate. The most reliable forms of feedback is power on the bike
Mhm.
pace on the run, and now there's technology where you can do power on the run.
Yeah,
Right?
I've got that the
Yeah.
stride on
Stride.
my,
Yeah.
I bought one of those and
Yeah. So
I was
you're
use it.
going to be
Yeah.
able to start to hone in more on that higher reliability of feedback, because now it's no longer biased to an uphill or a downhill, right? Because pace on
Hmm.
a flat surface that's consistent and that's where it is. But as soon as we get an incline, well, your 7-minute mile up a hill is actually equivalent to a 650, and your 7-minute mile going downhill is actually equivalent to an 8. And
Right.
so you could be running down and looking at your pace and going, man, I am killing it today. And then we take your net result with the decline slope and your pace, and you're actually running a slower pace, so you're not in the right zone. So power is going to be, once they improve this technology and it becomes more to the forefront, the coaches that know what they're doing will really be able to effectively coach with power. But right now, as that technology is continuing to be developed and tested, it's pretty reliable to do power on the bike, pace on the run, because most Ironman runs are pretty flat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's a huge hot topic for people. And I think a lot of the coaches out there are coaching with Heartrate because they're just going to Google, YouTubing, and Googling what other people are doing and saying. And they're like, oh, I can be a coach and this and that. And they're just, again, more Me Too's out there that are just copy and pasting and doing, not really having the knowledge or experience, and they shouldn't be coaching. There's a lot of coaches out there that should not be coaching. Because, oh, hey, I've done an Ironman, I've got the experience, I can coach my buddy. No, you shouldn't be doing
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that
that.
makes a lot of
I'm doing a
sense.
lot of ranting today. This is fun.
No, this is good. This is good.
I don't
These are
usually do this much ranting.
this is what people need to hear though, because it's true, right? This is and and I've always been curious about this, so it's good to get the truth about it. So now I feel better about buying my power meter for my that goes on my shoe, because now
Yep.
I was actually in the last marathon I ran a few weeks ago. At first I wasn't thinking I was going to use the power meter, but there was a lot of hills. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I started using the power meter, and that, I think that saved me, because I would have been in trouble, because I always misanticipate the pace difference that I need to be at on a hill.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's really
super hard.
hard.
It's
Yeah.
super hard because if you're running uphill and you're like, okay, I know muscularly I can run a 7:10 over the marathon, but then you've got a mile long hill and you're running that 7:10. Well, now you're running a 6:45 in terms of effort. Now you've gone into that. You can only burn so many matches to where you can go below or into where you're capable of or prepared to do. And that's when you get into trouble with that incline, and you're like, okay, so really having an understanding of running uphill, running downhill, and how it affects the paces. And we use Training Peaks with all. I mean, they've got the
Mhm.
most robust back engine as far as like reading and analyzing data. You can pull up a report on any run that you do, and highlight a section or your uphill, downhill, and it'll give you your net pace on that incline. And it's super valuable information, because then you can start to get to know, especially on training, right? Okay, I run that hill
Yeah.
all the time. At an 8, it's really an 8:20, so I need to be going faster, or likewise, I need to be going a little bit slower in order to stay in my zone. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm using Training Peaks as well.
for sure.
I got a couple of questions that out of my curiosity here. So they're kind of related. So one of them is, what is your fastest marathon time?
I've never trained just for a marathon,
Okay.
but my fastest is a 3:14. So nothing
Okay.
lights out. I just found out though that there's a high likelihood that I'm going to get a spot in the New York Marathon next year.
Oh, nice. Oh,
So
cool.
so it'll probably be the first marathon that I actually train to go at, and I'd like to go sub 3.
Okay. And what, when you were doing this training, and this is kind of related to that first question, because I've been curious about this, I would assume that when you trained for the 50 days, that you did a lot of low intensity, what I would say low heart rate, but low intensity training, because that's the nature of the event. What do you feel like you could have run a marathon? And I'm only using that because that's the thing that I can gauge, because I know what a marathon is, right?
Yeah.
What do you feel like the time, let's say at the end of those 50 days, that you could run, or at your peak during that time, that you could have run a marathon during that time? And the reason why I'm asking that question is because I'm really curious about whether, there's a huge debate whether doing the low intensity training is actually the best, or this the specific training for speed. So that's why I'm curious about that.
So so we do a really good hybrid mix of low intensity and speed intervals when we need to. If you train slow all the time, you're gonna compete slow.
Okay. Yeah.
Training slow, it's a protocol for if you're injured or if you're overtrained, and we've got to back out of what you've done to yourself and get you back to where you're functioning normal. Again, you're not developing the muscular endurance you need to if you're just running the slow paces. And then if you try to run fast on race day, you haven't recruited that type of muscle engagement in training, and so you're just going to fry yourselves and blow up. Honestly, it'd be almost impossible to predict what I could have run a standalone marathon in peak of training. I'd like to think it would have been under 3 because I was in unbelievable shape. But our coaching philosophy is soar. And that's SOAR. How high can you soar? And that stands for stress, optimize, adapt, and recover.
Okay.
And in order to effectively evolve as an athlete, you have to stress all of your systems in an optimal situation, and you can only adapt and evolve through recovery. And so that means that you have to stress it with intervals and intensity, the right amount at the right time. And then you have to recover the right amounts intermixed in all of that so that your body can adapt. Because it's only through active recovery and lower zone workouts that you can go through that adaptation phase and recover and become a better athlete. And so it's that whole formula of stress, optimize, adapt, recover, stress, optimize, adapt, recover.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So when you're training for that, the 50, were you doing a lot of training that was it mostly low intensity, long distance, or were you're mixing it up still even then?
Oh, for sure. And
Okay.
you'd be surprised, leading up to one of the longest endurance tests in sports history, we were doing heavy Olympic style lifting, like 5 sets of 5, and deadlifts and cleans and squats. And
Oh, wow.
because again, it goes back to strength. And with this type of endurance challenge, the thing that people overlook is how durable you have to be to hold on for 50 days of muscle breakdown and effort is remarkable. And, that's one of the reasons we were successful. And what a lot of people aren't willing to do is the strength training component of things. You can't be soft. You can't be just a one-dimensional athlete. You've got to be able to go sideways and be durable. You've got to build those ligaments and tendons. That's what'll sideline you, And then when you show up, you got to be a mental giant in order to overcome all of that. You have to do the physical work and show up so unbelievably physically fit, and then pair it with the same level of mental toughness and grit.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Now, what about the diet? Like, what were you? Well, I guess I'm just interested too. What is your thoughts on, right, in the endurance sports? There's sort of a divide between the people that say, okay, we should eat to be fat burning, right? So more kind of on the keto side, and then we won't bonk because we're not relying on carbohydrates. We don't rely on glycogen. But then there's the other people that say, oh, when I switched to a plant-based diet and I ate almost all carbohydrates and cut out all the meat products, then I started becoming better. Where do you fall on that?
Yeah. This is a hot topic right now. Obviously, everybody's seen the new documentary Game Changers that came out. And here's the thing, and this is just my personal belief. Any piece, any article, any research, any documentary has an extreme bias. Any review, any whatever, there's an extreme bias, and it's funded heavily by that bias.
Yep.
So everything needs to be taken with a grain of salt. All the diets are fads. They come, they go.
Yep.
Keto used to be Atkins. Plant-based has always been plant-based. Here's the thing. If you're to break it down into the simplest of forms, not everybody is the same, and everybody's going to react differently to different foods, different cultures, different environments, and whatnot. So there's no one catch-all here.
Right.
If there is to be a catch-all, in my opinion, it is, and the common denominator between any diet across the board, I challenge you to find it different, eliminate processed sugars.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if
100%.
that's the
Yes.
common thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's true north with every single diet fad, remove refined sugars.
Yep.
Remove them. Okay, so if that's true, now I believe your base, your foundation should be plant-based,
Mm-hmm.
meaning lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, grains, legumes, and meat sparingly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That to me is the balanced diet that everybody will be successful with if there is a blanket diet. The problem with meat consumption is one, there's too much of it. You're eating it 3 times a day, and you can't physically process this amount of food or meat or whatever in a day. Dairy causes insane inflammation, which is terrible for athletes.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
causes
That makes
joint
sense.
discomfort. That causes slowdown. And all of it should have to do with blood flow. We shouldn't be looking at anything other than how we feel and how we're performing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if you're a person that's like, look, I perform really, really well and I feel amazing off of a really good cut of steak on Sundays every Sunday. Great. And if you're so overwhelmed, do no meat Monday. I don't care. But the reality is the commonality between all of it, remove refined sugars.
Yeah.
Remove them.
Yep.
Remove them. Stay away from them.
Yep.
And then your foundation should be fruits, vegetables, grains.
Okay.
Then meat sparingly. That's should be the recipe for everybody. Forget all the marketing and all the BS and blah. Who cares?
Yep.
Those should be the foundational thing, and the way that we've eaten forever, and in every culture and in everywhere around the world. You talk about fruits, veggies, rice, beans, that's potato. I mean, that's it. That's what the world is eating. That is healthy. That is feeling good. That is longevity and all that. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
No,
it.
that makes sense. I actually, a while back, I had read 2 conflicting books. One of them called How Not to Die, which is very much vegan, plant-based. Another one called Obesity Code, which is very much eating a keto type of diet. And you're right. The one thing, my exact statement after that was cut out refined sugar, because of all you could debate on either side. They had some pretty convincing arguments that eating meat is killing you, and then on the other side there were convincing arguments that a lot of plants cause inflammations and the toxins, and it's not so good for you, and it's raising your insulin. But both of them agreed sugar is bad. That's like everyone knows.
Food.
Yeah.
Yep. Make your own food. Make it from, I call it Jesus food. Eat Jesus foods.
Yeah.
It's on this earth.
Exactly.
Eat as much as you want. Right.
Yep. Now, what about when you were training? So, I mean, shoot, in 50 days of running, I mean, when I run a marathon, I burn like around 3,500 to 4,000 calories. Now I'm 245 pounds right now. So that's part of the reason why, but still I can imagine an Ironman for anyone is going to be at least 4,000 or 5,000 calories. I can't imagine it'd be less than that. So if you're doing that for 50 days, I mean, plus your base metabolic rate of at least 2, maybe 2,500, you got to be eating 7,000, 8,000, maybe 9,000 calories a day. Is that how it, I mean, otherwise you're just going to waste away.
Yeah. You actually burn more calories than that in an Ironman. And we were consuming anywhere between 10 and 12,000 calories a day.
Wow.
And obviously the 50 was such a unique outlying situation. My engine got burning so hot I could eat anything, and it just converted it to fuel. I mean, I was eating 12,000 calories a day, and we got down to 4% body fat.
Whoa,
So I mean, it was just you're just burning an engine. And if we ever, not that we will, but if we ever did the 50 or something like similar to it again, I would change a lot of the stuff that we ate and how we ate it, and I would try to control that a lot more. And we do a lot of high nutrient dense, easily absorbable. Honestly, I do less meat and try to get it from other sources that are just as effective, that didn't sit in my gut, that didn't give me any issues. And we were so lucky that we didn't deal with hardly anything. Just I trained with eating foods and developing an iron gut. And it turned out to be needed, because obviously 50 days of 12,000 calories, you've got to be, your system got to be efficient. So we did some stuff right, but we could always we learned a lot, and we could do it better, obviously. It's with anything. When you're going through something and learning and nobody else has done it and you're trying to figure it out, once you're on the other side of it, you now have experience and knowledge, and you could do what you just did a second time better because of sheer knowledge and experience.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That must have been quite a feat, though. And I'm actually starting to train for. Actually, today is the first day of my training for 100. I'm going to do a 100-mile race next year. Is my plan, and I've been thinking about the eating. That's been on my mind. Is like how am I going to do this? And
The worst thing you can do is 2 weeks before the event, reach out to me and say, "Hey, how should I fuel for this race?"
Yeah, you
That's
got to
what a
be
lot
practicing
of
it,
people,
right?
you laugh, but that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be something that on every long run you're doing, you're like, okay, how did I feel? What did I take in? What
Yeah.
worked? What didn't work? I'm going to change this one thing. By the time you get to your race start, it's like, no, I know exactly what I'm going to fuel today, and hope that on that day you feel good. But you're removing that variable from the table because you've practiced it. I can't tell you how many people go into a 100-miler or an Ironman or whatever, and they're like, well, I think I'm going to. No, dude, you should never say the words, I think I'm going to, going in one of the things. You're like, no, this is my game plan. I've practiced this, and I need my body to show up today and do what it's done in training.
Yeah. That's funny. I actually was just having a discussion with someone when I was training for this last marathon, and they're like, "Oh, so what pace do you think you're gonna run at?" And I was like, "No, I have it within the 10 seconds. Like I know because 10 seconds faster or slower is a huge difference over that." And it's like, but
And with
people don't understand.
With an ultra 100-miler, typically they're in the mountains with a lot of elevation gain, and you're like, you can't
You can't.
run those uphills. So it's like, you know what, I'm going to be walking every uphill.
Yeah.
And I'm going to fall down the downhills, and I'm going to try to keep a certain pace on the flats, if there is any, right? And so it's really hard to hone in exactly what you're going to do. And that's where you just got to get up in the mountains and practice those things, and then do the intervals and the speed work on the treadmills and get that work in. And let me know if you need any help. Obviously, we coach athletes all the time, and we have 100-miler athletes on our docket.
Okay. Yeah. It's the next challenge for me. I want to be able to get this one done. I was trying to think of something, and actually you inspired me to do it, because I was like, wow, because I was thinking, oh well, I've run a marathon, and I never imagined I'd be able to run a marathon. And and I think a lot of people don't understand how difficult it is to run a marathon when you're 240 pounds. It's a big difference. Burn a lot of calories.
Yeah, no, for sure. And 100-mile takes a lot of respect too. I'm sure Drew Manning, Fat to Fit, Fit to Fat to Fit.
Yeah.
He went out and tried to run a 100-miler, and was just unprepared, and ultimately wasn't able to finish. I mean, he did an unbelievable job and got in 80-something miles, but
oh wow,
it's not the type of thing where you're like, okay, I'm going to be mentally tough, I'm going to figure out how to keep moving.
No,
you have to be mentally tough and physically prepared. That you have to match that level of intensity on both sides of that fence. And people are like, no, I'll just show up and I'll be mentally tough. Well, without preparation, your bodies have limits. And I don't care how mentally tough you are, when you snap a tendon and your Achilles blows up on you because you've done 10,000 feet of elevation gain, I don't care how mentally strong you are, you physically can't take another step. Yeah. And so just, obviously you're a smart guy, you do your work, you do your homework, and you show up, but make sure your physical preparation matches your mental toughness.
Yeah, 100%. I'm giving it. I mean, like I said, I just came off a marathon, and I've been running like 70, 80-mile weeks, but I'm giving it a year, because I know that's what I want to come into it, knowing I can do it, knowing absolutely I could do it, and knowing I could probably do 10 more miles or 20 more miles if I need to. That's the way I'd rather run the race than so.
Absolutely.
So before we drop off here, I want to kind of talk about real quick, what is it what do you got going on right now? Because I want you to, people, I mean, after they watch this, they're going to be fired up. They're going to want to take some action. They're going to want to do something. They're going to want more Iron Cowboy. So where should they go? What should they do? What do you want people to take as the next action after they watch this video?
Yeah, I think it's, a lot of people should just chime into the Netflix documentary and check it out and see who we are. On social media, I'm very active on Instagram, Iron Cowboy James. Always an interesting read is our book called Redefine Impossible. That's available on my website or on Amazon. If somebody wants a challenge out there, including you, I'll put this out there to you. We put on a race here in Utah called Utah's Toughest. There's an Olympic, a half, and a full distance, and it's in the mountains, and it's legit and it's tough. And so anybody that wants to go sign up for that, it's August 1st of 2020. And everything that we do and all my races and my schedule and things that we're doing is on ironcowboy.com.
Okay.
And
awesome.
everything can be linked through there. If you want help in achieving your goals, we obviously coach athletes from all levels. That's also linked through ironcowboy.com. Everything can be found through there. And then our social media, Iron Cowboy James.
Awesome. So guys, check it out. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is, like getting a good coach, no matter how good you are, no matter how much you know, having someone else telling you what you need to do.
I have a coach.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Because you can know it all, but having someone be able to tell you what to do, there's a power in that, and have that accountability.
Well,
right?
And the biggest thing is too, a lot of times, like we're all on our own personal journey, and we're really invested in that. And oftentimes we need someone who can remove the emotion from the journey and experience that we're having, that can be objective with a decision that's maybe better for us.
Yep.
Then one. So that's another big reason to have a coach. One, the accountability, one to create structure, one to bounce ideas off of, one to communicate with, but also one that can make an objective decision when, hey, look, I'm looking at the data, you're really overtrained. There's some key things here, and they can actually do that for you. So multiple reasons to have a coach. That's why I have a coach. That's why I coach, and likewise with you.
Yeah. Awesome. Appreciate it, James, man. You are an inspiration, and you're the real deal. And you know what I appreciate more than anything about you? You're fucking authentic, man. You're genuine, and anyone that's listening to this can tell that you genuinely care. You're not trying to smoke and mirrors anyone, and I really appreciate that.
Awesome, man. Thanks, John. Have an amazing rest of your week. Have an amazing weekend. And whenever this drops, kick ass the whole year.
All right. Appreciate it.